Hello everyone, welcome to the yarn bowl. Today in this video we're going to see how to crochet this cute strawberry puff stitch keyrings. They're super cute, super easy to make, and if you want a free written pattern of these keyrings, it's available in my website theyarnbowlcrochet.com. Link for that is available in the description. If you have an Instagram account, do follow me on my Instagram handle as well. I post project updates and fun reels on my Instagram. And if you are new to this channel, please do not forget to subscribe to the yarn bowl and click on the bell icon as well so that you get notified whenever I post a new video. So we're gonna make these cute, fluffy and soft strawberry puff stitch keyrings with the puff flower, and it's a super simple, super easy pattern. It takes about less than 20 to 30 minutes to make this, and if you're a fast crocheter you can even make it soon. And this yarn it's like a regular size 4 yarn, but it is a chenille yarn which I got from Etsy. You can also find it in Temu as well. So they are nice soft yarn, easy to work with. So I bought them in Etsy. I also found them in Temu. I'm not marketing this yarn, but I'm just letting you know in case if you're interested. This is the yarn that we use, and also you can use the regular size 4 yarn if you're not finding this yarn anywhere else. And we'll need yarn, some stuffing, and I'm gonna use 3.5 millimeter crochet hook. We'll need stitch markers and a blunt tip of a metal crochet hook to stuck in the extra yarn bits after you finish your project. And I'll need the clasp and keyring for our keyring, stitch marker, polyfil, and scissors and hard glue gun. So that's it. Let's get started. Let's first make the strawberry. So for that I'm gonna work a magic ring, and then I'll work a chain 2. So every round the puff stitch we start with chain 2. Then we're going to work our puff stitch. I'm going to insert my hook into the magic ring, pull up a loop, and then I'm going to repeat this 4 times. Yarn over, insert your hook inside the magic ring, pull up a loop, which is a long loop, and repeat it 4 times. And then yarn over, insert your hook through all these loops, and then work a chain 1. This is your first puff stitch. And then I'm going to work my next puff stitch. Yarn over, insert your hook through the magic ring, pull up a long loop, and repeat it 3 more times. So on every round we'll start your starting puff stitch with the chain 2. Remember that. Now I'm gonna yarn over, pull through all the loops, and then we'll work a chain 1. So that's your second puff stitch, and we're gonna work 2 more puff stitches on the magic ring. So yarn over, insert your hook through magic ring, pull up a long loop, and then repeat it 3 more times. So that's your third puff stitch. And after you repeat this 4 times altogether, you'll yarn over, pull through all the loops on your hook, and then work a chain 1. Now work your last puff stitch. So once your last puff stitch is done and you work a chain 1, we are going to work a slip stitch on top of the starting stitch. So you can either work on the stitch that we worked through all the loops, or you can work on the chain 1. If you work on the stitch that we pull through all the loops, make sure you work a slip stitch on the chain 1, when you start the next round. Otherwise you can start the next round right away if you have worked your slip stitch on top of the chain 1. Now this is round 2. So on the every chain 1 space of round 1 we will work 2 puff stitches. As I told you earlier, you start your first puff stitch with the chain 2 and then you yarn over, insert your hook through the chain 1 space, pull up a long loop, repeat that 3 more times. After you work a puff stitch, work a chain 1. That's your first one. We are going to work one more puff stitch followed by a chain 1 on the same chain 1 space of round 1. Work a chain 1. Now repeat this on every chain 1 space of round 1. So on round 1 we had 4 puff stitches. For round 2 we'll end up having 8 puff stitches. So repeat working 2 puff stitches on each chain 1 space of round 1. So once you complete all these 8 puff stitches, you will work a slip stitch on top of your starting stitch. So as I told you earlier, you can work slip stitch either on the stitch that we used to pull through all the loops, or you can work on the chain 1. So if you are working on the stitch that we worked pulling through all the loops, you will need to work a slip stitch on the chain 1 space when you start a new round. Otherwise you can start a new round right away. So that's the end of our round 2. For round 3 we'll again increment. We'll work 1 puff stitch in one chain 1 space of round 2 and we'll work 2 puff stitch on the next chain 1 space of round 2. So as I told you earlier, start your first puff stitch with a chain 2. So now once you work your puff stitch, yarn over, pull through all the loops, chain 1, and in the next, so in this round I'm working 2 puff stitches on the same chain 1 space on my starting stitch. So for the next chain 1 space I'll work only 1 puff stitch. You can either start working 1 puff stitch in the chain 1 space of round 2, or you can proceed working 2 puff stitches on the chain 1 space of the previous round, but in the next stitch you will increment accordingly, which means now I have worked 2 puff stitches on my first stitch. So for the next stitch I will work only 1 puff stitch. So repeat working 2 puff stitches on one stitch and 1 puff stitch on the next stitch around. So you should have 12 puff stitches at the end of round 3. So continue working this round. I'll meet you at the end of this round. So now this is my last puff stitch. I have worked my chain 1 also. Now I'll work a slip stitch on my starting stitch. So I have worked on the puff stitch, pull through loop, so I'm working a slip stitch on the chain 1 space. So now for round 4 I'm going to just work 1 puff stitch on each chain 1 space of previous round. So start your starting puff stitch with a chain 2, work a chain 1, and then work 1 puff stitch followed by a chain 1 on each chain 1 space of previous round. So you should still have 12 puff stitches at the end of this round. Continue working this round. I'll meet you at the end of this round. Continue working 1 puff stitches on each stitch of previous round. And once you're done, work a slip stitch on top of your starting stitch. Now we'll work our decrement round. So we're going to work puff stitch 2 together on every 2 stitches around. Start your starting puff stitch with the chain 1, chain 2, and then work the puff stitch 2 together in every 2 stitches around. So once you are done, we'll work a slip stitch on top of your starting puff stitch 2 together. So this should bring down your stitch count to 6 stitches. Continue working puff stitch 2 together around. I'll meet you at the end of this round. Now I have worked my last puff stitch 2 together. I'm going to work a slip stitch on top of my starting puff stitch 2 together. So now we'll need to stuff your strawberries with polyfil before you work your last round. So don't overfill or underfill, just stuff your strawberries with as much of polyfil needed, because this is a puff stitch. So if you try to overfill your polyfil, it will just peek inside the stitches, so and it will show up through the puff stitches. So now we'll work 1 single crochet on each chain 1 space of previous round. So start with the chain 1, which does not count as a stitch, and then work 1 single crochet on the same stitch and continue working 1 single crochet on each chain 1 space of previous round. So you should have 6 stitches at the end of this round, which is our round 6. And once you are done, work a slip stitch on top of your starting single crochet stitch. Now for the next round, you can just work single crochet 2 together or work slip stitches around to close the small openings that you have. And once you see that your opening is closed, you can just leave a small tail and work slip stitches and cut your extra yarn. So we have made our strawberry. Next we will make the leaf that goes on top of the strawberry. So they look super cute and fluffy already. Now I'm going to work this leaf part that we are going to glue gun with later. So for that I'm using green color yarn. For round 1 I'll leave a long loop and start my magic ring. This long loop we will work chains at the end, so don't skip this part. So leave a long loop and then start your magic ring and work 6 single crochets on the magic ring. Do not work a slip stitch on top of your starting ring. We'll start your next round right away. So we're going to work in a spiral. Once you work 6 single crochet stitches on the magic ring, tighten your magic ring and then work round 2. So now for round 2, we'll work 2 single crochets on each stitch around. Work 2 single crochets on each stitch around. This should bring your stitch count to 12 stitches at the end of round 2. Go ahead, work 2 single crochets on each stitch around. Now after your round 2 is complete, tighten the magic ring even more and secure it with a knot. Now you end your round 2 with a slip stitch on top of your starting stitch. And now we'll start your round 3 right away. So we're going to work 6 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I'm going to work a slip stitch on my next chain, that is the second chain from the hook, and then I will work 1 single crochet on the next chain and 1 half double crochet each on next 2 chains, and then I'll work 1 double crochet on my last chain, and then we'll work slip stitches on next 2 stitches of previous round. Now your first leaf is done. We're going to repeat this 6 more times. I'll work a chain 6, and after you work a chain 6, work 1 slip stitch on the chain 2 from the hook, and then work 1 single crochet on the next chain, work 1 half double crochet each on next 2 chains, and then you work 1 double crochet on your last chain. After you work your double crochet, go ahead, work 1 slip stitch each on next 2 stitches of previous round. So you have worked your second leaf here. Go ahead, follow the same pattern and work 4 more leaves. I'll meet you at the end of this round. Now I have completed my last leaf. I will work slip stitch on next stitch, and then I'll go ahead work slip stitch on the starting stitch where we have worked our chain 6, and then you can snip off your yarn, work a slip stitch and weave the end. Now we have left a long loop in the middle while starting your magic ring, right? So we're going to pull up that long loop on the right side of your work. And then pull it again through your work to make a slip knot or chain kind of a stitch. And then I'll go ahead work 16 to 17 chains. If you want a longer loop, you can just make a few more chains extra. So I have worked 16 chains here, and then work a slip stitch at the end of your chain, and then pull this chain through the center and work slip stitch and pull out the extra yarn. Just tie these yarn bits together so that it doesn't unravel, and you can snip off your extra yarn. Next we'll see how to create the puff flower. That's also a super easy pattern. For that I'll be using yellow color. So here is our leaf. So we'll use a glue gun to stick this leaf on top of your strawberry like that. Now for the puff flower that is added to this keyring, which is completely optional. If you want to just work the strawberry, you can go ahead do that. I'm going to work a puff flower. For puff flower, I'm going to work a magic ring, and then I'll work 12 single crochets on the magic ring. After you have worked your 12 single crochets around the magic ring, work a slip stitch on top of your starting single crochet stitch. After that, you can tighten your magic ring and secure it with a knot. For the second round, we'll work the puff stitch flowers. Now for round 2, we'll work the petals. Observe this carefully. Work a chain 3 and yarn over, insert your hook on the same stitch where you have started your chain 3. Pull up a very long loop and then yarn over, pull through 2 loops only. Yarn over, insert your hook on the very same stitch. Pull up a long loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops only. Now we have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through, insert your hook through the same stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops only. So now you have 4 loops on the hook. Now we'll yarn over, insert your hook on the next stitch. So 3 yarn over, insert your hook, pull through loops on each stitch, and then we'll proceed the same on the next stitch 3 times. So this is my last pulling up of yarn, and then I'll work yarn over, pull through 2 loops. So now we have all these loops on our hook. I'll yarn over, pull through all the loops except the last loop, and then I'll yarn over, pull through last 2 loops. After this, I'll work a chain 3 and work a slip stitch on which your last 3 puffs are worked. 3 stitches in your first puff is worked. So we'll need 6 puffs like this, but before you work that, I'm gonna work a slip stitch on my next stitch. After that, I will work a chain 3, yarn over, insert your hook on the same stitch where you started your chain 3, pull up a long loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops only, and repeat working this 3 on each stitches. So we'll consume 2 stitches of round 1 for 1 petal. After you have worked 3 puffs on each stitch of round 1, you'll yarn over, pull through all the loops, leaving last 2 loops, and then we'll yarn over, pull through those 2 loops as well, and then work a chain 3 and then work a slip stitch on the same stitch. So then work a slip stitch on the same stitch, and then after this puff stitch is done, we'll work a slip stitch on the next stitch and then start working your chain 3, yarn over, insert your hook on the same stitch, pull up a long loop, repeat this 2 more times on this stitch, and then I'll yarn over, insert your hook on the next stitch, pull up a loop, repeat this 2 more times. 3 yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop on each of these 2 stitches. After this, I'll yarn over, pull through all the loops except last 2 loops, and then I'll yarn over, pull through those 2 loops as well, and then I'll work a chain 3 and then work a slip stitch on the same stitch. So we'll consume 2 stitch of round 1 for 1 petal. And then after you're done working slip stitch on your last stitch, I'll go ahead work 13 to 14 chains. Before you snip off or before you work slip stitch to join to the starting chain, I'm going to leave this yellow loop inside the loop that we have worked with the leaf, which is the green loop. And slip stitch on top of your starting stitch. So this loop is where we are going to attach it to the keyring. Just weave through the ends, and we'll work the center puff that goes on the center of the flower next. It's totally optional. If you don't want the center puff, you can decorate your center with rhinestones or any other stuff of your choice. Now for the center puff stitch, I'm going to use green yarn. With the green yarn, I'm going to work a chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'll yarn over, insert my hook on the first chain, pull up a long loop as high as I can, and then I'll repeat that 7 more times on the starting chain of that chain 4. You can go more or less in this count. So for me, I have worked 8 chains, 8 loops. So after you are done with this, I'll yarn over, pull through all the loops, and then I'll work a chain 1 and then work a slip stitch, leaving a short tail. Now you will attach this center puff to the puff flower. So now attach the center puff on your puff flower and then weave all the ends together and snip off the odd bits of the yarn. Now your puff flower is attached to the loop that goes on the leaf. So this yellow loop is where we are going to attach the keyring. Now I'm just tucking in the odd bits of the strawberry, and then I'll use glue gun to stitch this leaf to the strawberry. So that's it, your strawberry is done. And next is to use the clasp and keyring to attach the loop on the yellow yarn which is attached to the puff flower, and we are good to go. So that's a super easy pattern for making these keyrings. So you can make a ton of them in less time. I'm just putting in a little glue on the center puff as well, just to be safe. So now next step is to add a keyring to the yellow loop. You can use them as a bag charm or as a keyring. So now I'm adding a keyring to the yellow loop. So here it is, our cute strawberry keyring with the puff flower is ready, and you can go ahead play around with the colors. I just couldn't stop making them. I made plenty in no time. So I hope you found this pattern simple and easy to follow. So these are the colors that I made these strawberry puff stitch strawberries, and you can find the free written pattern in my website theyarnbowlcrochet.com. Link for that is available in the description. If you have an Instagram account, do follow me on my Instagram handle as well, and please do not forget to subscribe to the Yarn Bowl and click on the bell icon as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.